Deca Dence went out on the absolute best bang that it could have ever ended on. I would go as far to say I don't want a season 2. While I do see the potential in a season 2, hell, they could go slice of life adventures at this point with how they ended it, or even bringing in a new threat. It just feels so conclusive and satisfying that I just want to leave it off on this seemingly open-ended but closed book sort of conclusion, because this was a remarkable episode that had me feeling excitement and fear and thrills, made me almost cry a couple of times. I'm not gonna be afraid to admit that fact. It just felt like it was what I wanted. There's a couple of elements that maybe I could have seen maybe an extra 10 minutes of this episode being able to accomplish, like maybe more of the how the humans and the robotic sides kind of mingled after everything, not doing just the 3-year time skip. But honestly, with how the system kind of concluded here, with basically having good robot cybernetic people on your side, and you know, I feel like with everything that's happened in their world and how kind of humanity did crash and burn, there probably is a way to just explain it, or just say, hey, you know what, we built these robots, and you know, maybe they could twist the truth a bit to make it a little more digestible for the humans. Nonetheless though, the epic grand scale finale and not being able to activate the Deca Dence to then having to gain administrative control, killing Kaburagi, but obviously having that backup, which I actually love. I mean, it's a little cliche in a certain sense, but I'm really happy to see, because they are in the cybernetic body, it makes sense that you'd be able to do backups, and the fact that we did have our girl log into his body, it kind of makes sense that she would have made a backup or at least stored his data in some way. Not so she could reboot him and put him in a new sleeve, but more so just because it made sense from a technological perspective. It just felt like this episode hit all the beats it needed to, and once again shows, even when you're approaching its last episode, you don't know what you want to see, but seemingly they showed me exactly what I wanted to witness. I think the idea of not just being able to activate the Deca Dence, he logged in, so now we're good to go, but rather, because this is an administrative control system, it makes sense that because he is a bug, that it would be very hard for him to actually control it even after he has fully merged with it. The thing that caught me the most off guard with, which I actually really like, is how technically this system is fine with bugs. It's the whole idea of change, and even if the Deca Dence was to completely crumble, that's part of learning and growing, and the true point of the system, the people who we thought were behind everything, were just small pieces in the grand scheme of things. And because Kaburagi is such a bug, at that point, it's not even just like he was given control just because he's the main character, but it's more of like, at this point, you're going to die. This was already doomed to crash and crumble. They were going to let it crumble. It doesn't matter if you kind of go with the system or not. You're a bug. This is kind of to be expected, good luck sort of a thing. It's not like they gave him control just because he's the main character. Literally, there was no reason to either give him or not give him, because at that point, the system was doing its own thing. It was going to survive with or without Kaburagi, and who knows what would happen if he did survive. And the whole idea of them actually wanting bugs but obviously not admitting that to the public, I think was a great way to give him that control, but give us that fear of what if he can't activate it. The question I had was like, what are they supposed to do? We've already seen the Deca Dence activate. It wasn't strong enough to beat this all-impressive foe that honestly continued to get stronger every second. So the fact that they actually use something that none of us probably assumed they were going to, but has been in the background since we started exploring the wastelands, is that these old parts that were all scattered across, and the fact that now that Kaburagi has full control, he could grab all of them and make a super cannon. While it does come from thin air, in a certain sense it doesn't, because it was there since day one. We just didn't assume that was what it was going to be used for, and the fact that he removed his limiters to make sure that that cannon was going to be a one-shot KO, I thought was a beautiful way to kind of up the ante, scale it up with escalation, but do something we probably didn't expect. And the fact that they actually went fully through on killing Kaburagi off, while they did give him a new body at the end, I actually did really like the fact that it was years before he actually did come back. It wasn't like one of those things where she's like, oh yeah, I made a copy. It was something she completely overthought, because, you know, sometimes the smartest of people can overthink the simplest of solutions, especially when it's like, well, because of how they are, it's sad he's gone, but I mean, he went out with a smile, so it wasn't something they're like, okay, we gotta find a way to bring him back. From their point of view, he was dead, and as you're going through the systems, it's like, we completely forgot. And I love that. I think it's a nice way. While the sacrifice, it doesn't feel like it's forgotten, it also is kind of redone in a way to make it feel like they had to grow accustomed without his guidance, and Natsumi had to grow on her own 2 legs for 3 years, become her own person without the help of her true father figure. So it's a way of giving the sacrifice meaning, but giving her a father for the rest of her life because a real one had to die, unfortunately, far too soon. So to have him back, I think was a great, very hopeful way to end the series, in my opinion. I think those kind of like open-ended sort of situations where it's like, oh, look how they're like merging things. Like they have a fighting arena, they have like a new sports game that they use their flotation devices to toss around a ball. The fact that they have basically a god-awful petting zoo. I definitely think the petting zoo could go haywire if you really wanted to do a season 2, but it's nice to see that they're able to blend the two sides because I really didn't know what they were going to do. If it was just going to, I assumed it would be strictly humans. But the fact that these two sides pretty much are their own species at this point, they were able to kind of blend the two, I think was really interesting. And like I said, the only thing I would have changed is maybe a bit more before the time skip to see what they're able to accomplish, but it's nice to see the new and improved Deca Dence. And honestly, in my mind, I'm going to say they either did one of two things. One, they're able to reveal the truth in a very like blunt way that people had to just swallow, or the second one, which I think might be the more logical solution, like, hey, you know, these aren't originally humans who turned into cyborgs, but we just got these robot buddies here that are actually operating the Deca Dence all along, and just the real people behind the scenes didn't want us to know, but now it's our future, which I think is probably the direction they went. But nonetheless, it just felt like a very epic episode, and whenever you hear the main theme or the main ending song kick into an episode during the last fight, you know you're getting shivers, you know you're getting goosebumps, and it was just an exhilarating ride through and through. Without a doubt in my mind, Deca Dence is what I consider to be an underrated masterpiece, and I firmly believe it deserves that tag, masterpiece. While this may not have garnished the same reception as some of the big hitters of the summer 2020 season, it's something that screamed originality, that wasn't afraid to take those risks and be bold and be creative. The fact that you can have a giant 3D CGI looking monster as your final boss, and I'm looking at that being like, they actually animated it really well, blended it in with the world, and made it look very smoothly transitioned from back to back. But then again, when you have two unique, distinct art styles, one of us chibi cybernetic versions and then more realistic anime designs, it's not crazy to think that the studio was able to accomplish so many different ideas in terms of production. It just felt like it knew what it was doing. It wasn't something that just randomly came up with ideas. It was something that had a beginning, and it had a middle, and it had an end, and everything in between wasn't filler or something you could dispose. It was building blocks to get to those big crucial moments, and not many shows with as much ambition like this can get it done as smoothly. But if I was to really sit back and say, what are my issues with this series? I have very, very few. This episode would have liked to see a little more before the time skip, and then maybe after that. Honestly, thinking about the story, thinking about the narrative, I like it. I really think it had a very smooth transition from all the things, and basically everything that I thought I wanted, even when they did something completely different, which was a majority of the time. I really liked what they delivered, and honestly, I think this is going to be a show that the more I rewatch, the more I claim it to be one of my favorites that have been made in the past decade. This is an exceptional show that if anyone enjoyed, please spread the word, because more people need to binge this amazing show, and honestly, I'll probably buy the Blu-ray whenever it does get released. Let me know your thoughts and feelings though on the final episode, the package overall, and do you want a season 2? I know everyone always wants more, but sometimes less can be more, but of course, whatever you're feeling, let me know down in that comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like to show your support and hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.